Good afternoon. Welcome to the Corning Museum of Glass and our hot glass demonstration. We have a guest artist for you this afternoon. We have Cedric Mitchell. How about we give him a nice big welcome? Nice. We are streaming live here from the Corning Museum of Glass, so welcome to those of you who have showed up here at the museum and to those of you who are joining us from around the world. Cedric has been here for the week. He was out in Alfred University. We've actually got some Alfred students that worked with him this past week. They came out to show their love, which I've heard it's midterms week. Yep, so thanks for making time in your day to come out here and support Cedric. He was out doing a workshop for the Alfred students, and Alfred's so close by, it was like, come be a guest artist here at the museum for the week, and here we are, and it's now almost the end of the week. We've been talking about this live stream all week, and here we are. Sorry, Chris. Here we are. Cedric comes to us from LA, where he is working and making glass, but originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma. So we're excited to have him here, and he's going to be making a really exciting piece for you this afternoon. This is a process that he has been working on all week. He came in and he said, I'd like to try a new piece. I've never made it before, and this is probably one of the best places to do it because not only do we have an amazing facility, but he gets to work with all of our glassmakers here at the museum. And so throughout the week, Cedric has been refining this technique, and we have come quite a long ways. We'll be doing some lineup, lining the pipes up and joining pieces and parts together. So what you're going to be seeing here in the beginning is Cedric is going to be working on the base of this vessel. Hello, Cedric. There he is. Here's the color overlay. We also have one of our AV staff is on the floor with a camera, so you're going to be getting some really amazing close-up shots. And I think later on we'll appreciate this even more because as we join these pieces together, it's going to have a nice effect to be able to see that up close. So this is the color overlay process. So there's the hot, gooey color overlaying the clear bubble. So he drops it on. So we gathered clear glass. We keep clear glass in our furnace, and when we want to add color, we use these bars of color. But we also have frit. Frit is little shards of glass, and it sticks to the surface just like sprinkles on an ice cream cone. And when it goes and it sticks to the glass, it looks like sprinkles on an ice cream cone. It will give you a mottled effect, so speckly. When we want that solid bit of color, we use this color bar or we gather out of a color pot. And so because we don't have 6 different color pots, we're using color bar. We buy this from a color company based out of Germany. We have a catalog. We pick out the colors we want, and they send it to us, and we could buy the same color in 5 years from now, and it should be really close. So it's all very consistent and all compatible. So glass has different compatibilities, and sometimes when you start adding different things like metal oxides and salts, you might change the compatibility. It might not be compatible with the clear glass. We're melting a Spectrum System 96 2.0, and I believe out in Los Angeles, Cedric is using the spruce pine batch. Yeah. Spruce pine batch, and that's also what we use over at the studio. So we want to make sure that all the color is compatible with the formulation of glass that we're using, and so the color companies and the batch companies make sure that's possible. So it's like we're a bakery. We don't make the flour, we don't make the vanilla and all the ingredients. We just buy all that and put the glass together. So yeah. So Cedric is what we call the gaffer. He's the person in charge. There will be lots of things happening around him, but he will be conducting the whole thing. So on our team, we have George Kennard. He'll be helping Cedric out and doing a lot of the flashing and lifting. We have Chris Rochelle, who will be making some parts over here. He's been making parts for this totem all week. And so Cedric has said to Chris, make this shape, make it this size. Chris says, okay. And Cedric says, love it, beautiful, perfect. So it's nice to have a team that you trust. And when you come in and you're put with a team and you don't know if you can trust them, it's nice to know at the end of the week, I got a good team. We also have Helen Tagler. She'll be helping put these pieces together as well. I'm Catherine. I'll be assisting and answering any questions you may have and narrating throughout the process. So if there's anything you're wondering, and even this goes for you at home as well, if you're wondering anything, you let Amanda know. She's on the computer and she will relay all the questions that you may have. If you're here in the museum's amphitheater, shout them out, because sometimes I won't be paying attention, but you can raise your hand or just shout them out if you have any questions. It could be questions for Cedric. It could be questions about glass in general. We'll take them all. What's that? He loves questions. Awesome. So he's pushed. Oh, we got a question already.
Yeah, someone was wondering about the Memphis Design-style of like what we can expect to see in the live stream.
Okay. Yeah, so in I think this was the description of the live stream. Cedric said he was going to be doing some Memphis design. And they were wondering a little if you wanted to speak a little bit to that. So Cedric was saying out in Tulsa in the 80s, there was a design group, the Tulsa, no. Okay, out in Italy. An Italian designer. Okay. We're going to get him a stick mic. And he's going to, instead of me, we're going to wait till he's done with his overlay before I throw the stick mic at him. There you are.
Check. All right, so basically there was an Italian designer named Editore Sosa, which they started this design house called Memphis Design Group. And, you know, most of the glass was made through this large glass factory called Vanini. So they made these like really nice colorful objects which were stacked together in like totems. So they did that, and also ceramics and then furniture, but all of the objects contained like bright and poppy colors, and it was real playful. And it was kind of like the theme of the 80s anyway, you know, with all these crazy colors and people being open to like, you know, color. In the 90s, it kind of like faded out. So, you know, I'm a type of person that I love color. So I kind of just wanted to play around with that with the stacks and like stack objects. And generally the idea was for me to make them and glue them together. And then coming here, the idea kind of expanded where we can like make it hot and big and, you know, just do it all. So we just been able to like combine all these elements together, and it also reminds me of like playground equipment too, and like play school and Play-Doh and all those type of things that came out in the 80s as well. So it's a thing that, you know, I've been really finding a lot of joy in making this week. So, and I'm out.
Thank you. I think it's always nice to hear from the artists, so thank you, Cedric. I know you weren't psyched about. It's hard. You're thrown in the hot shop, and you got a lot of pressure. This is a live stream demonstration, so when somebody else throws a mic and they want you to talk, it can throw off your game. So, but we appreciate hearing from the artists. So here's our first gather on top of that color overlay. We keep clear glass in our furnace. So he went in to get another coat of glass, and he'll build this up. This is going to be a few gathers. We can't gather all the glass that we need on that first dip because the glass is the consistency like honey. If we kept trying to gather more hot glass on more hot glass, it would just keep dripping off. And so he lets the gather cool, and we gather on top of it again until he's built up the material that he needs to make this piece. He's using these wooden blocks to shape, center, and cool the hot glass. These blocks are carved from blocks of cherry wood, which has a dense grain pattern and a low resin content. So the wood burns away nice and even, and there's not a lot of sap that would boil out of the wood and leave a residue on the surface of the glass. So he'll let this cool off a little bit. This will be the base of this whole totem. So it has to be of substantial weight. It's gonna hold the 6 or 7, I think it's 8, actually I think it's 8 pieces. It's gotta hold those 8 pieces. And so it has to have a good weight to be able to hold all those pieces, as well as being transferred and standing strong. So Chris is actually working on the top of the totem. So right now we've got the base and the top of the totem going. So he's creating this sort of donut shape. I don't think the one that he's making will have a hole all the way through, because Cedric has chosen to put the 2 marbles in the center of the donut hole. So it won't be like this one, but very similar, but it will be sort of a donut shape. So we can use some compressed air to cool that off because of our mask requirement here at the museum for employees and guest artists, anyone working on the floor. We're using a new system of inflation. It's an automated inflation system. And so that's the blow hose that you see Cedric hooking up to the end of the pipe every now and then, which is a tricky system to get used to. It's not something he uses at home, and he's adapted quite well. I would say that us, the home team here at the museum, the first couple of days we used it, we were getting tangled. It was getting wrapped around our legs, wrapped around the bench, and so Cedric has actually picked it up quite well and is I wouldn't say he's real comfortable with it at this point, but it's working out. So there's our third gather He's gonna cool the pipe off. These pipes, they do get hot, and so we roll them in a trough of cold water to cool the metal off. That way he can choke up on the glass and get better leverage and not have his hand be too uncomfortable. So we always cool the pipes off, especially when we're making bigger work. There is about 2 feet of that pipe you can't touch, just because it's going in and out of the furnace, in and out of the reheating oven. And so they do heat back up, but we just cool them right off. He's getting everything running nice and even off the end of the pipe. This is like the step in a ceramics process where you center the ball of clay in the center of the wheel. It gets everything, allows you to make a nice even vessel and get everything running nice and straight. Assess this process. Yeah? The metal is stainless steel, so every now and then I think you'll hear us refer to them as irons, and that's just an old industry term. They used to be made of iron. But the pipes that we're using today are steel, stainless steel, which is a fairly poor conductor of heat, so the heat doesn't travel up the pipe as much as you would think, and we can keep our hands nice and cool. So Chris is heating the center of that flattened donut shape, and he's getting to the point where he's going to kind of create that donut hole. So he'll use this newspaper. This is about 6 or 7 sheets of the local newspaper folded up to fit right in the palm of our hand. This allows him to shape the glass. There's a nice shot of Chris pushing the center of that bubble together to create this beautiful bubble that will be at the top of this totem. So glassmaking is very much a team effort. You can see Chris and Helen are working really well together on the other side of the shop. And we've got quite a big team today. And that's usually what happens. The larger the piece that you're working on, usually the larger your team. A lot of things are going to be happening. You'll see a little later on in the demo, different pieces will be being brought. Doors need to be opened, torches need to be run. And with this piece, because we are using this sort of lineup technique, we need to line it up every time. When Cedric came in and he said he wanted to make these pieces, the first one we made, we kind of stuck them together offhand. And so we just brought the punty over with the piece and kind of tried to find center, stuck it on. Once you stick something together in glass, there's not really any way to remove it nicely. And so you kind of have to stick it and it's stuck. It's a one-shot deal. And so we were thinking as a team, we thought, there's this tool, this lineup machine. And it was a tool that they used in the old Steuben crystal factory when they were joining like a base to a top of a piece. And it allowed you to line up the 2 pipes so they were running even and slowly bring them together, and it was very stable and it didn't move, and it took that guessing out of it. You just stuck it right on. So we got out the old Steuben lineup machine, and Cedric said, this isn't going to work. These pieces are going to be about this long. And so even the long lineup machine wasn't going to work. So what we did is we put some rollers here on the bench, and we're going to use a double yoke and create our own lineup machine that will allow us to make a very large piece, a very long piece, probably around 35 inches? About 35 inches. We are limited to the length this can be by the size of this hole. We've got some pretty long annealers, so if we can't reheat it in this oven, we can't make it. And so we are limited by the size of our reheating oven. And so we measured it, and I think we'll probably be maxing it right out. So this will be a nice long or tall piece. So he's puffing this bubble up, stepping on that foot pedal. This will be sort of a dome shape. He's cutting in a line with a set of steel tools called jacks. These are tools that were used by the earliest glassmakers. 2,000 years ago, tools were used just like that. And what he's doing is he's creating a line right off the end of the blowpipe that he will get the glass to break on. So it's like the thin, weak lines in a chocolate bar that allow you to snap it apart, share it with your friends. Same thing, that's where the glass is going to break easily. So we're basically telling the glass where we want it to break. If you don't tell the glass where you want it to break, it's going to break along the path of least resistance. And who knows where that is? Could be right down the bubble. There's a nice view of that donut shape. So these are going to be very colorful pieces. Everything's going to look a little different today because it will be hot. So that orange donut is probably a nice neon yellow. Is that what the top is? Or is that orange?
Yellow.
The donut's yellow, yep.
Base is orange.
Oh, the canary yellow. So he's got a canary yellow, a neon green, a nice orange, some pink? No. I can't remember what the... He's been using a lot of colors this week, so we've got... All these totems have 6 or 7 colors in them each. So we're going to use a wooden board to make sure that the bottom of this will sit nice and flat. He's staying on the sides with the newspaper. So basically we're creating a mold with the two tools. Staying on the bottom with that wooden board. Cedric stays on the sides with the newspaper or the jacks. And so we're just kind of telling the glass what shape we want it to be. The wooden tools will spark smoke. This glass is well over 1,000 degrees at this point, and so saying that, we'll also be shielding Cedric's arm a little bit. That's probably the more sensitive part of your arm, the inside of your arm there, and it's really close to that hot glass. George is also capping the end of the pipe with his hand or thumb, which traps the air inside so that this bubble doesn't cave in or collapse. Yeah, all right. So essentially we're just creating a mold. Instead of blowing into a mold, we're creating a mold with the tools in the hands. He's got some calipers. So going from a sketch on paper and then making a 3D object can be difficult. So you got to measure the base. So make sure that the base and the center of the piece are all in good proportion. So I think he has a measurement of a few of the pieces that he asked Chris to make and what size they are. And so with the base, he wants to be a very similar size. So this is a nice proportioned piece. got a really beautiful shape. Cedric's going to make this whole process look very easy. This is actually a quite difficult process. The reason he's making it look so easy is because he is a very skilled glassmaker. When a glassmaker makes it look like a difficult process, it usually shows their inexperience and their level of experience. And so when someone makes it look very easy, it just shows you that they have quite a bit of experience. Cedric's going to drill a little hole in the bottom of this piece and then close off the top. So he's going to pop the little hole in the bottom because when we're going to be heating this up, the air inside would expand the bubble if he didn't allow an area for the air to escape. So he's going to take this tungsten rod, heat up the end of it till it's glowing cherry red. And tungsten is a metal that will not stick to glass, especially when it's hot. So he'll get in there and just drill a tiny little hole right through the bottom of that piece. And this will allow air to escape. It's also going to allow them to attach a punty that if they needed, they could inflate. So a blow punty. So George will make a punty. Usually we make it on a solid rod and stick it to the bottom of the piece, but George will make the punty on a blowpipe. And it will be a ring punty, so it's not going to cover the hole. Usually we punty right to the center of the bottom of the piece. It would cover that hole, so he's making a ring punty. But he's also going to blow through the blowpipe to make sure that it's a clear pipe for air to escape or to inflate. So now he's going to let this cool off. Yes, he's using a torch to allow it to cool off. We can't let the whole thing cool off. We want it to kind of stabilize and cool off, but we want to keep the glass where he's going to break it nice and warm. So we use that torch in that certain area just to keep the glass warm, letting the bottom half cool off. And at no point will we ever really let this glass cool off. We're going to keep it well over 1,000 degrees the whole time we're working. Even when we're finished, we have to put it into a slow cooling oven for a cooling process. It's going to slowly cool over a period of time. And I believe the period of time that he has chosen is 24 hours. So we won't see this for a while once it goes in the oven. If you are interested in seeing this piece in the upcoming few days, you could check out our museum's social media. And once it comes out of the oven, somebody will hopefully photograph it and get it out there so you can see what's going on, because I know you'll be dying to see what this piece looks like once it's finished and off the pipe. So George is making sure that that pipe is clear, the hole is open, and then pushing the glass out so it'll create a ring over this hole. Cedric's just keeping the whole thing nice and warm. So we're not only committed to keeping the glass warm, or well over 1,000 degrees, but we're committed to keep the pipe turning. So this is a glass blowing process, but probably only a few minutes of this whole process. We're going to be blowing glass for probably an hour and a half here. And we're not going to be blowing the whole time. So a lot of it is just turning the pipe and keeping things hot. So So they stuck that punty on right on center. He has a few seconds to adjust to make sure that the punty is running lined up with the blowpipe, keeping everything centered. And he's going to add a few drops of cold water to that constriction line he made earlier. And with a very light tap, this should pop right off. And there we go. How about a big round of applause for a nice clean break? One of many transfers that will happen throughout this demonstration. So things are going to start getting exciting. There is a little hole at the top of the piece now, but they're going to spend a little time closing that hole up. So first he's going to do a little straightening. So he'll use those tweezers to get everything running nice and straight, nice and even. Kind of adjusting it on the punty. Once it is running straight, we'll let it cool off and stabilize. You can use that wooden board on the base or the bottom to make sure it's running nice and straight. And then he'll close up that hole, slowly kind of shrinking it down till it's all the way closed. George goes back into the heat, heats just the leading edge. So we've turned up the oven. This oven, we can adjust it. It's now on its way up to about 1050, which is a nice warm temperature that we're able to pull the glass out and run quickly to the 2100 degree oven. We're just making sure that everything's in there and it hasn't escaped. Make sure all our parts are in good order and not cracked or broken, fallen over. You will not always see glassmakers wear gloves, but every now and then, if they choose to do so, they can slip on a glove. And the past couple of times he's cut this off, he's kind of squirming at the end because your hands are so close to that hot glass. And he's going to cut off the little knob at the end that he chose to slip on a leather glove, which is a smart move. But he'll probably take it right off, and you don't usually see. He'll need his hand to be available to grab all the other tools and do things. So probably just for this little step, he'll throw on that glove. So George is going to get the top of this hot, and what we look for as glassmakers is a little bit of color and a little bit of movement. So that nice bright glow is what we look for out here. Inside the oven, we probably look for a little bit of movement, but as experienced glassmakers, we also kind of know I can stay in here for this amount of time and that should be good. I can start checking on it at this point. So you can see he squeezes that down. You can see the wooden board. He's even ditched the glove. He said that's not going to work. Ditched the glove. Cut it free. Now it is a closed off bubble except for that little hole in the bottom. So now he can create a nice dome from the top. We'll leave that little, I'll pull out that little piece here in a minute. We can keep an eye on it as far as color. We'll get to see the true color. Maybe I'll even put it over here so you can keep an eye on it. Watch it quickly cool to its color. So it looks orange still. Check on it in a few. You'll see that neon green color start to pop out. So he'll use that newspaper pad to cool and shape the top. He's also got the blow hose hooked back up. I can hear him tapping on the foot pedal, and he's putting little puffs of air in. Our automated inflation system is dialed down to about 1 to 2 pounds of pressure, which is enough pressure to blow out a candle. When you blow into the end of the pipe to inflate hot glass, it's not as hard as you would think. It's a really light puff. So it doesn't really take much pressure at all. You can hardly hear the glass coming out of the end of that hose. It's so soft. So he'll use that newspaper to shape that up. Helen's going to shield his arm, and George is again capping the end of the pipe to trap the air inside. And look at that, we've got this really beautiful dome. Or gum, it's like almost like a gumdrop shape. It's gonna create a little flat spot, and now we're gonna start sticking everything together. This is where things are going to start to get tricky, intense, exciting, everything all at once, live, yeah. So he's going to just create a little flat spot, and then we'll start getting everything lined up. Chris is creating the punty. To pull the pieces out of the oven, Chris makes one of these punties, one of these temporary handles. So it's kind of like a Q-tip shape. So he's going to shape that up on this cold metal table. Cedric is using a board on the base, the bottom of the piece, and the top, just to create. Sometimes if you paddle the top of the piece, the back can get off, and so keeping the two boards on this thing will keep everything running nice and straight. He's also going to drill a little hole, this whole piece. Every time we attach a bubble to this bubble, again, we need to pop that little hole in so that when we take the reheats, otherwise, if they didn't pop a hole in this, the cylinder that they attached, the air inside would heat up and it would create sort of an oval bubble. So we want to make sure that the air can escape through the bubble, the bottom of the bubble, and through the blow pipe, blow punty. Right behind you, Cedric. So our lineup machine is kind of a bit finicky. We have to adjust it every time, and the floor is uneven, so we even have to adjust the height and everything as we go. So as nice as it is, it's so it looks like we're good. We'll check it again when we actually have the cylinder on there. To do this by hand, Cedric would have to take the piece, keep it turning nice and even, slowly stick it on, and then the trouble would be he's stuck in this position. He wouldn't be able to lean over the top of the piece to see if he's hitting center. So he's actually going to take a seat here on the end of the tool bench and really get close and kind of guide the two together, which works really well. So you got tweezers and a board. Do you need that little bonking board? All right, so Chris has got that cylinder. They're gonna line things up, making sure it's nice and straight. You've got to line it up, make sure it's the right height. Ready? That's it? right, so we've got it lined up. Now they're going to use the hot torches to heat the areas where these come together. So Cedric's going to stay on the base with the hot torch. Hot glass is only sticky when it's really hot, and the two sides that come together have to be both really gooey and sticky. Otherwise, it'll create a weak connection or a poor seal or cold seal. And so we want to make sure that these are really hot, nice and sticky, nice and gooey. You'll notice that the punty that Chris has this on, it's one of those weak connections. It was a cold, the piece was in an oven around 1,000, so it's just kind of cold. And then he only heated just the tip of the punty. So it's meant to be a very cold seal or a weak connection. You're going to notice a few drops of cold water is all that it will take to set that free. So here we go. Chris is going to run over. They'll heat the two. Once they're really close, sticks it right together. Now Cedric's going to stay on there with the torch, and he's even got a cork paddle to kind of make sure that that seal is nice and straight. These are really geometric straights. He's got that really straight cylinder, so he's using that cork just to make sure that seal is nice and even. A few drops of cold water on the punty. A light tap, and the crowd goes wild. And then a quick flash. All right. Yeah. Yeah, it's the canary.
Oh, the canary.
No, it's the neon green.
Yeah.
Find it? What do you need? Looks like it needs to go which way? What's our height look like? Oh, it just blew up. So here's why you have to anneal or slowly cool the glass, because if you leave it out here in the room temperature air, it'll... Might be the... Is that the orange? So again, Cedric's going to pop another little hole there in the piece. Neon green, R180. Yeah.
Okay, well, so it's just that first part, not the end.
Yep.
Just,
R180. So if you're going to the catalog and you want to say, I want to use that neon green that Cedric Mitchell used in his live stream, you can go to Reichenbach and get the 180 neon green. So this punty that George has this totem on, the end of it is the last thing in the oven. It never really makes it all the way in, only for short periods of time. So as we're building this totem, they're gonna keep a torch on the back of that punchy just to keep everything nice and warm. It's the only thing holding this glass on the end of the pipe, and so if it gets too cold, it cracks or breaks. We don't have a way to hold on to this piece, so keep it nice and warm. We don't want it gooey. We don't want it like honey. We don't want it moving around. We want it hot and stable. And that's just something we know from experience what it looks like. We're not going to use any sort of instrument or thermometers. We have this sort of internal timer. We can, if we've been out of the oven too long, we get a little, that little bit of anxiety. And I need to flash this. I need to heat this. I need to get a torch on it. And it's all just experience based. All right, so Chris said he's ready. He looked over to Cedric. Cedric said he's ready. So they're gonna come do what we call a price check. They're gonna make sure that this is going to line up nicely. So we'll get a couple angles on it. All right, they say it looks good. They're gonna torch it, stick it together. Some of our major adjustments happen when we start adding those longer cylinders and the floor starts to slope that way. So we're using just a brush to clean off anything that might have been picked up from our pickup oven. Glass likes to stick to hot glass, hot metal, and dirt and dust. So we like to keep it clean and clear. We can brush it off. So there's that hot torch on the edge. Still doing all right on questions? Yeah? So he's heating up the end of that. Ideally, we're looking for a little bit of glow, a little bit of movement. So it looks like they're gonna hold maybe try to straighten the bottom a little bit. They're gonna stick this together. So first they line it up. George is saying my side has a little bit of a wiggle to it. He got it nice and hot. They're gonna straighten it out. And stuck. Again, making sure that seal is really nice. A few drops of cold water. And a light tap. A few more drops of cold water. And rough. So we'll back this up another 10 inches. Add another cylinder. Add the flattened cylinder. Donut. Some little marbles. going to use boards on the top and the bottom. Just going to pop that hole. Again, because we want this piece to, the air to flow through the whole piece. We don't want air being trapped in any of these components. Actually, the bottom might be that orange color. The base is the R19. So George goes in for a really nice heat, keeping that punty in the back of the piece nice and warm. Comes out and I'll straighten everything out once again. So to keep this at the temperatures we need to keep it at, it's always nice to see a little bit of movement. We don't ever really want to see it be rigid and hard. We want to keep this nice and warm. George is going straight up and down. Let the center of the bottom settle back a little bit. It's got a little bit of a kick to it, much like a champagne bottle. This will allow the piece to rest on the very outer ring of the base. So Chris is going for that second cylinder. So not only do we have to make sure everything's lined up when we stick it together, but Chris has got to make sure that he sticks these punties right on center, and it's something he's very good at. That seems easy, like all you have to do is find the center. That seems pretty easy, but as you're going in and you're getting closer and closer and your hand is getting closer and closer to the 1,000-degree oven, you can start shaking and becoming unstable. Ready? Did it move? Okay. All right, we're lined up. We're lined up. Now it's just time to heat the ends up. Still good on questions? Are you on the edge of your seat? Yeah, there you are. Yeah. Cedric says, me too. right, here we go. Everything has to happen so immediate, like, so he's got to make sure he's got his tweezers ready to bonk this off if we're scrambling around trying to get this knocked off. Everything has timing, temperature, and teamwork, especially for this piece. Glass blowing in general, but especially for this piece, timing and temperature are all very, very important. And teamwork. Man, teamwork for this piece is crucial. A few drops of cold water. The lightest tap. There we are. So it was nice. Everything's going really smoothly, and this looks like all so seamless, but we've made a few of these pieces here this week, so we've got it ironed out. It's all pretty smooth at this point, and so this is not our, we've rehearsed this a few times, so everything's going to go pretty smooth. But don't be deceived. This is actually a very difficult piece to make. So just keeping those seals warm, keeping that puntty nice and warm. They're gonna pop that hole in. Heating that tungsten rod and popping that hole. Doing it over here allows us to keep everything lined up, and we don't have to adjust and scramble to get everything lined up again. Now the question that a lot of you are probably thinking is, how heavy is it? Yeah. The pipe, I'll tell you, the metal pipe itself probably weighs about 5 pounds. I proposed this question, but I don't actually really know. These components are actually pretty light, but if I hold them close here to my set, this is pretty light. But now imagine holding it out on the end of a stick. It's like holding a bowling ball in a shovel. Or, if you're from upstate New York or anywhere where it snows, a big shovel full of snow. It's going to feel a lot heavier than if you were able to hold it close to your center of gravity. So this piece is getting heavier and heavier as we go. What? All right. Here is the purple short cylinder. Add it to the stack, add it to the totem, clean it off. Make sure it's nice and clean. A lot of that dust can be brushed off, but by the time you heat things too much, that dust or dirt could be permanently embedded in the glass. So we want to brush it off as soon as possible. Cedric's just making sure everything stays nice and straight. So they're just going to do that quick check, making sure everything's lined up and straight. Are we good with questions from home? Okay. All right, here we go. Being in a hot shop is being like in a kitchen. If you're not doing something, if you're not in the action, you should be out of the way, because the person with the hot glass running through the shop is not going to be very happy if you're in their way and they have to move around you. So our team has been working together for, I would say, minimum 10 years. So we all are very used to working in the same shop. But as far as glassblowing in general is concerned, if you walked into any shop, that's what you'd see. Glassmakers, on their very first days of learning this process, are told where not, or are taught not where to stand, or taught where not to stand. So never behind the glassmaker. So it's kind of like, it's like a kitchen. You don't stand behind the chef with the sharp knife or the hot pan. You don't stand behind the glassmaker with the hot glass and not tell them you're not back there. You can stand there. If you have to sneak by them, you always yell right behind you, loud enough they can hear you. But most of the time, stay right out of the way. You can always usually tell where a glassmaker is going to go. They usually look to make sure they have a clear path and to make sure that everything that they need is there. So here they go. They're going to line this up. And at the right moment, sticks it right together. I mean, if you wouldn't know, you thought this team had worked together for the past 10 years. Really, they've worked together for about 32 hours. A few drops of cold water. Oh, light tap. The crowd goes wild once again. And you're going to get a nice shot of this big purple disc in the back of that reheating oven. There it is, a nice up and close personal view. You can actually see the little punty scar there on the bottom. That is, we have a camera that sits right behind the oven. Looks through a little window of a special type of glass called fused silica. It was developed here in Corning in the 30s. It's the glass used for the space shuttle's windshield. And it's the type of glass that makes this live stream possible. It is one of the 2 high purity glasses that runs through the core of optical fibers for fiber optics. Yeah. 24 hours. With all these connections and all these different parts, we're gonna let it soak in the annealing oven for a good 24 hours. So all glass that's made this way has to slowly cool or anneal. Our shortest annealing cycle for a standard piece is about 8 hours, 8 to 12 hours. The largest piece of glass in the museum's collection, which is the 200-inch disc that was cast here in Corning out of Pyrex, was cast for the mirror in the telescope at Mount Palomar, the Hal telescope. It's cast here in Corning out of Pyrex. It weighs 20 tons, and that had to slowly cool or anneal for 11 months. Yeah. The first attempt at that casting is up in the Innovations Gallery. You can check it out today. It has, it did crack. Part of the mold caused it to crack. And so that was the first attempt. The second attempt is in the Hal telescope at Mount Palomar today. It was transported from Corning, New York out to California via the railway. That was pretty neat. Like I said, in the 70s, 3 scientists put together those 2 high purity glasses, one being that fused silica, and it's what all the information travels through in the core of optical fibers. So 2022 is actually the International Year of Glass. We're all connected by glass at this point, and what makes this live stream possible. So this demo is brought to you by Fused Silica and the innovations of Corning. All right, we've popped the hole. We're ready to go. We're just going to take it over to the rollers. Eric Meek is joining us. Chris is going to pop in there with the donut. This one's tricky because you gotta have to line up the flat sides. Cedric says it looks good. So this week here at Corning has allowed Cedric to experiment with this new line of work, these totems. And so you might be seeing more of this in Cedric's future. If he likes the way these turns out, if he thinks it's something he wants to explore more. Alrighty. Once we get the donut on there, there's going to be these 2 little marbles that go in the holes, and then the final stretch will be just making sure everything's running nice and straight, nice and even. Here we go. Yeah. It just looks like so easy. All you have to do is bring over the donut, stick it to the top. It's just that easy. So now Cedric's got these little cork paddles. He can make some minor adjustments if he needs to. Really fine tuning the placement of that donut. So it looks like George has kept everything running really straight up until this far, so it's not going to take too much. But it is always really important to take the time to straighten the piece before it goes into the annealer. If the connections are put too hot into the annealer, they can start to kind of fall or continue to fall off center. Straightening pieces at this stage in the process can be stressful and tricky. Because as you'll see a little later on in the process, the lightest tap will set this free. So we will, everyone's going to be real careful moving around. And there we are, maxing out the oven. Kissing the fused silica with the tip of the piece. So Chris has got that first marble. He's going to kind of cut it down. Cedric's going to grab it with a set of tongs. Going to grab that hot ball and heat the ball, but also heat the donut. So we never want to touch the hot glass with cold tools. So they're putting a little heat on those tongs. And then we're going to just heat the very tip of the marble here. And then the donut. Yep. And a nice stick, another nice stick. Chris has got that second marble. How you feeling? He feels good. It's a beautiful piece. It's coming together. One final piece to add. Cedric has another day here in the shop tomorrow. So if you're in Corning, come stop in and watch him make some more work. And follow him on, what is it, it's Instagram, right? Cedric Mitchell Design. At Cedric Mitchell Design. See what he's up to, follow. Okay. And there we go. So again, once he's added all these pieces together, it's time to straighten once again.
So Cedric, I'll straighten the center of it, maybe like get it to stay back in, and I'm gonna flip it.
Okay.
Of course, you can straighten the top.
Okay, do that.
So just going to keep an eye on all those spots,
Tell me when to stop, okay?
making sure everything stays nice and straight. Cedric's using those cork paddles. Cork is really nice because it's soft on the glass. Metal would crack the glass at this point. And so by using that cork, you can touch the glass without leaving any stress or scratches. All right, all the way in the oven. It's a nice view. Chris is putting on the silver suit. This is how he's going to carry this piece that's over 1,000 degrees into the 900-degree oven. So not only does he have to carry it, he's got to stick his arms and face into the 900-degree oven. Putting the final touches on. So our annealing oven is the one over here. They're going to open the doors once Chris comes running over with the piece. Goes into the oven and we won't see it for... So this would be your last chance. If you want a picture, get it now, because once they get this straight and cooled off, this is going into the box for a good 24 hours. These colors are going to brighten right up. We've got an orange, a yellow, a lime green, purple, turquoise. Okay. Cedric says he thinks we're good. One more flash.
Let's take a look at it, see how much it's moving around.
Before Chris grabs it, before they knock it off, he said, let's take a look at it and see how much it's moving around.
Take a couple short flashes
And we'll take our time putting this away because we don't want this. We've worked really hard. Cedric's worked really hard to keep this nice and straight, nice and even. And we want to keep it that way. I'm going to stop turning just to see how much it's moving or if and where it is moving. So it's good. The only movement we have that they can see is on the punty, and that's a good sign because we don't want that punty connection to be too cold. If they add cold water to glass that's too cold, cracks will go shooting out from where they drip the water, and that's no good. All right. A few drops of cold water. A light tap into the oven. You get a good glimpse at the last piece we made this morning. Into the oven for slow cooling, safekeeping. Cedric Mitchell, everyone. Awesome. It's beautiful.